Welcome to Second Take, the show that focuses on the issues behind the news. South Africa's largest gold miner, AngloGold Ashanti, has produced 1,600 ounces of gold using its exciting new technology. Mining Weekly editor Martin Creamer provides an update on the progress so far. Welcome, Martin.
Thanks, Shannon.
AngloGold Ashanti's South African technology project is going well. Can you give us an update?
I just love this project. I mean, I've been following it from inception. You know, I drove out to the Far West Rand, spoke to the technical team, and they put off such a good case at that time that we used it as a cover story, saying this is gold on tap. You know, they're going to produce gold 7 days a week, 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, and it's just going to be like a change in the fortunes of gold companies because they couldn't get to reserves, and now this technology will get to these reserves. And I thought, well, look, it's going to take a long time to do this, but they just pushed the envelope so fast that we now have had 1,600 ounces produced. So it's a real technology. It works. And what is so fantastic about it is it leaps over mechanization. Everybody's talking mechanization. Mechanization's got a whole lot of confines that you work in. And that's been going on in the rest of the mining world now for decades. It's like us going for a fixed line phone all of a sudden instead of going for the cell phone. We must leap right over that mechanization, get into automation. And this allows us to automate. And the progress to me has been rapid. But the people you talk to say, no, they had this technology in the 70s. Now, why this wasn't introduced can only be because of the politics of the day. I think at that stage they thought, no, we can't get, we can't change the way we're mining now because there's such a lot hanging on it politically. So they didn't bring it in. But when they dusted off these things, they said the only thing missing was the backfill. And that's not rocket science. And you can see they've got to the backfill solutions. They're still working on them, but they clearly are going to function well, even though they've got 20 days to cure. So, but that's not an issue because they can have a special sequence in the design that enables you to raise bore. So this is all the gold, only the gold, all the time, safely. I mean, what more do you want?
Which areas does the technology target?
Well, it's not going to go into the areas that are being mined at the moment. What does that mean? We're not going to get rid of any of our people. So our people are still going to work those mines. What we're going to do is we're going to go into the areas where it's too dangerous for people to go in because of the way we mine, leaving pillars behind, etc. But with the backfill, we can now go in and mine those supports. We can go in and mine those shaft pillars that are like treasure houses for gold. They've got a lot of gold in them. And it's now technically possible to do that while you still keep the roof up because you've got this backfill. So they're saying while we get to these reserves, to these resources and turn them into reserves, because they were just resources before, not reserves, and reserves mean you can really get that gold. While we're generating this money, we can still keep our other operations going. We don't have to retrench anybody, but we can start reducing those people through natural attrition, and we'll have the funds to do it. So you don't fire them as they retire or want to go on early pension. You can send those people off. What does this do? This puts a brake on our migrant labor system. Now, if anything's a curse, it's migrant labor. I mean, who in their right mind in the 21st century would want to rip people away from their families for virtually a year? They get like 2 weeks off. And then say, well, you're still from Lusiki. I mean, why don't they actually bring them to the mine? I mean, my dad worked for the mine when he was transferred from Rietfontein mine out to the Carletonville area. We went to live in Carletonville. You don't still live here. So why do people still live in Lusiki and Lesotho and these places? They should have had their families right next door. They didn't, and this is why we've got the platinum belt. It's blown up in our face. We've all fallen fast asleep, and we're still not trying to wind it back. We're still pussyfooting. It is unacceptable for kids, to be playing on rubbish dumps just because you've given a living out allowance to people, because they don't even put them in hostels anymore, They say you've got a living out allowance, you're not living in the hostel, here's cash. That cash is meant for them to build a house. They haven't been doing it. They've been putting up shacks. The shacks aren't in areas where there should be housing. So there's no water, there's no sanitation, there are no roads. And then, because the mine workers are out of the hostel environment, they've got to wash their own overalls, etc. While they're washing their own overalls, the people of the community say, why are you doing that? It's a woman's job. So the women start doing it, and then we know the kids aren't going to school, they're on the rubbish dumps, and then you've got one family that lives close to the mine. You've got another family living in the labour sending area, maybe in Lesotho or Lesotho or Mozambique, whatever. It's totally unacceptable. And people are still going on with this. This sort of technology can help you to, systematically reduce that terrible, morally unacceptable situation that comes from a past era and foster family life and human dignity. You can't do this. And at the same time, you can leap into automation. Because in actual fact, when you go underground there and you look at the conditions, I wouldn't like to work under there. The height of the reef is less than the height, sometimes less than the height of this table, So you've got to get the gold out of there. It's a very tricky business. And using an automated process is far better than having humans break their backs down there. So this must come in. I don't care what people say. It's got to come in. If you've got the technology, it has to be done. But I notice there's not a sort of a rush, except for AngloGold. They keep on pushing this, and to their credit, every quarter they report on it.
Is the technology a commercial proposition?
And it's a commercial proposition. From there, you get it from the horse's mouth, and I keep pushing this because I want to know. And you talk to Venkat, who is the CEO of AngloGold Ashanti, and a fantastic guy, totally egoless, quick reporting, even he's frozen his own salary there, putting his money where his mouth is. He doesn't want any bonuses. He's driving the car he had. He's taken his own money and he's putting people through university because he doesn't like this massive gap between, executives. And at the same time, he's pushing this South African technology because he knows that without it, this gold mining could just go down the chute in this country, particularly with the price of gold at the moment. So he is saying, and he's an accountant, so obviously being an accountant, he would look at the numbers. This is commercial. Let's go with it. Let's get the bulk that we need. Let's start moving. And they are.
Now, this technology can also be used on platinum mines. Have any of them taken it up?
Exactly. It can be used on platinum mines. It can be used in that platinum belt where there's so much trouble. It can be used on hard rock, narrow reef mines, whether they're gold mines or platinum mines or whatever mines you want to think of, chrome mines. It can be used there. Now, there's no public announcement to say that it's been used. They only whisper along the corridors, yes, platinum is interested. Platinum doesn't put up its head and say, no, we've got this. It's about time, we're sitting here while people are in a court negotiating. This is unorthodox. Is it binding? Is it binding for a judge to decide, okay, we're not going to hear this, we're going to go around into the chambers? I wonder. I hope it's binding. We normally thought of the CCMA. That hasn't worked, so what are we going to ditch that? So a lot of the paradigms here are going to have to be changed. But at the same time, it should be migrated into hard rock, narrow reef mines, and that includes the platinum mines. And they can do the same thing. They don't have to retrench people rapidly. They can use it as a mechanism of moving away from this migrant labor, which is a curse.
And we could see it in about the next 10 years or so.
We could see in the next 10 years where people are now upskilled because they're going to be involved in an automated process. They're going to be sitting away from the vulnerable areas in air-conditioned cabs and things. They're going to be watching the situation on screens. They could even do a lot of it remotely and let those machines go into the danger areas to do the raised boring across 300 meters and extract the gold in such a fantastic fashion. We've been waiting for this because we've tried so many times to emulate mines in the rest of the world that work 24 hours a day or 7 days a week, 365 days a year. We've never done that because of the blasting. We can't blast. Like we must get rid of migrant labor, you must get rid of the blasting. The blasting kills people. You can't go underground into a rock situation like that and continually blast.
No.
You're shaking up the rock. So the seismicity then is generated, and that seismicity causes rockfall, and the rockfall kills people. So we've got to get rid of the blasting. We've got to move towards these techniques whether people like it or not, and they must start putting their mouth there and doing things because South Africa needs it at the moment, and we don't hear a lot. We just hear whispers in corridors.
The technology itself, though, could create jobs because somebody needs to fix those machines.
Exactly. So then you're going to get a higher paid job. So this mantra of minimum 12,500, that sort of thing can be accommodated, and you can do it in an orderly way because as the one increases, so the automation increases, the manual drill and blast starts disappearing.
Mm-hmm.
And disappearing with it is the blast, which is very upsetting to the rock formation, and migrant labour, which is morally unacceptable. And you're killing two birds with one stone.
It sounds wonderful.
I wish that they'd preach it from board levels at board meetings, because it doesn't seem to be happening.
Well, let's hope the right people are watching.
I hope so.
Thank you very much, Martin.
It's a great pleasure, Shannon.
That's it for today. Join us again next week for more news analysis on South Africa's mining industry.